a man launched an attack on the primitive being Pico with a sorrowful heart. He even resorted to street boxing moves, as he had been studying martial arts for 20 years. He couldn't accept that the Chinese martial arts, which had been passed down for 4,000 years, would be defeated by a primitive who only relied on brute force. Compared to 200 million years, 4,000 years was too insignificant. At this moment, he was overwhelmed by anger. He threw punches randomly and refused to use martial arts. However, the martial arts he had inherited was deeply ingrained in his body. When facing Pico's attack, his body instinctively used martial arts for defense, and the martial arts he had learned before was unleashed uncontrollably. Just then, the embodiment of his martial will emerged. He saw Retsukayo abandon martial arts and throw punches randomly, but he couldn't bear to see Retsukayo, who was passionate about martial arts, lose alone. That embodiment slowly embraced him and told him to entrust everything and dedicate all of himself to martial arts. Just then, Pico launched another attack. However, he directly struck Pico's chin. At this moment, Retsukayo seemed to be reborn. Pico realized that the man in front of him had regained his spirit and launched a fierce attack once more, but Retsukayo evaded the attack and directly struck Pico's vital part. The man began to let go of the burden in his heart and wholeheartedly believe in his martial arts. He grabbed Pico's hair with his foot and forcefully pulled him to the ground, then violently struck Pico's head with his hands and knees. The primitive Pico finally fell, crumbling in the face of the martial arts that had been passed down for 4,000 years. Tokugawa was extremely shocked. He thought that Retsukayo's attack just now had given Pico a concussion. However, the next second, Pico stood up again because his brain hadn't been affected. The scientist explained that he had conducted a comprehensive examination of Pico and found that his bones were extremely developed, and a similar structure could only be found in large quadrupedal animals. He claimed that Pico must have walked on all fours when he was young, so he could withstand an attack comparable to that of a nuclear weapon without getting injured. At this moment, Pico crawled on the ground and took up a fighting stance. Retsukayo was very shocked. He understood that Pico was ready to use his full strength, so he was also prepared to unleash his most powerful attack, the cannon fist. He was ready to face Pico's full strength blow head-on. The next second, Pico rushed towards Retsukayo at the speed of a cannonball. The moment the two collided, Retsukayo was knocked into the wall and lost consciousness. In this battle of strength, Retsukayo, who didn't back down, was defeated. The Chinese martial arts that had been passed down for 4,000 years was ultimately defeated by the primitive being.